three Gitin that apostle, ve'im nisis havlad kasher, which there are three Gitin that apostle, and that if they get married, the child is going to be kasher. What are the three cases? So kasher b'ksav yadai, the Gemara is going to discuss this in great detail. If they write with his handwriting, doesn't say whose handwriting, his handwriting, vein laveidim, but there's no witnesses on the get. So again, all these are possible, but if they get married with it, the child's going to be kosher. Number two, yesh laveidim, there are witnesses, but vein be'zman, there's no date. And number three, yesh be'zman, there's a date, but ve'ein ba'ela ed echad, but there is only one witness. Then the Gemara discusses whether Eidim must sign the actual get, which that's dependent possibly on the machlekes between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Elazar holds Eidim Masir Karti. The primary creases happens through the witnesses that witness the actual giving over. So therefore, they wouldn't necessarily have to sign the actual get. Rabbi Meir holds Eidim Chasim Karti. What makes the crease, what makes the get, is the witnesses signing it, and therefore, obviously, they would have to sign the actual get. The discussion regarding, which we'll see in the later daf, also what's called Ksav Sefer Ve'ed. If the Sefer wrote with one witness, would together they be considered as two witnesses? And the question is regarding, is it the writing of the Sefer, it's the signing of the Sefer, as the Gemara will explain. Also, the next mission is discussed regarding Shnaim Shasholchu Shnei Gitin Shavim. What happens if two people send the same type of a get? Two people that their names are Shimon and Rivka, and they both send it, and they get mixed up. So they both give both to either one of them to make sure that she gets the one that was written for her. So begin the current Daf Peivav, the second line down with Daf where we first finish up the conversation from the previous Daf. The Mishnah had said, Gufish or get shichur. The primary text of get shichur are the words Harei Baschayrin, either you're a free woman, or Harei Lasmach, you're free yourself. So this related discussion that we have from the previous Daf regarding the exact technical terminology that should be written in the get Isha. So the Gemara similarly says regarding the get of the Avadim. Iskin Rabbi Yehuda instituted Bishtar Zvini de Avdi when there is a document selling of a slave to write the following words. Avdu Dinan, our slave, Mutztak la'avdu. His judgment is for slavery, meaning to say that there's no contesting regarding the sale over here. Upatir va'atir min cheruri. And he's separated and distanced from all types of freedom. Umin ilule, from any claims. Uminiruri malko malkasa, or from any of contesting from the king or the queen. In other words, that he didn't sin, that the government has decided to execute him, because if he was on death row, so then actually the sale would be void, as the Gemara says in Bamitzia in Perkas Eicha and Daf Pei Amud Aleph. Urishum the inish, Rashi explains that they would make a sign on slaves, like the Gemara says in Shabbos after Chesed and Aleph. So the sign of abdus of a person, lo isa lohi, meaning he doesn't have slavery from any other person except for this seller. And mnuka mikalmum, he's clean from all blemishes, meaning he's not like an armed bandit, which that also the Gemara tells us in Kedushin Daf Yud Aleph that his sale is going to be void. So he doesn't have any blemish. Umin shchin de nafek ad titzar, from all types of blisters and boils that are on his face up until 2 years, which would be disgusting to be in front of such a person, because the word ad titzar means shchin de nafek is the boils that come out. The ad titzar means in Persian means 2 years. So Rashi says, but this that the Gemara tells us actually in Ksubas Tamdon Zayin Beis that there's no problem of simflein, which is some type of a hidden blemish by avodim. That's where you sell them unspecifically. But over here, since he's stipulating, the sale would be void, and therefore they would specify that there is no such boils. Chados v'atik, new and old. So here we're saying that this guy now doesn't have any boils, and the way shchin works is that you have, when the old one leaves, it will come back up until a period of 2 years. So therefore, up until 2 years, he stipulates with him that if there was any boils in the past 2 years, because again, that could come back, so then the sale is going to be void, because that means there already was this blemish and they just didn't see it. So the Gemara says, parenthetically, Maya Suse, what's the healing for this shchin that comes onto the face? Amabaya says it's ginbara, like the simple understanding of ginger, and umarsacha, So it's some type of the waste matter of the dross of silver that you take out from it in the place where you mine the silver. When you're digging out of the mountains, you take that dross, that waste matter, and v'chavrisa, which is sulfur, v'chala dechamra, and the vinegar from wine, u'mishcha dezesa, the oil from olives, v'natfik chivra, and white naft, v'shaifile, and you smear it begadfa de avza, with the feather of a goose. That's healing for this. So dermatologist to give that suggestion of the shchin, that will help for that. That was just finishing up regarding what's the text for the get shiur. Now we continue to look at the next Mishnah, which continues with now the theme of Gitin Pesulim. What are invalid types of Gitin? Says the Mishnah, Shleisha Gitin Pesulim, there are 3 divorce documents that are rabbinically invalid, but if they got married, Havlad Kasher, the child is going to be kosher, because ultimately it is valid. What are the 3 cases? So case number 1 is Kasa Biksav Yadai, if he wrote it with his own handwriting, ve'ein olav edim, and there's no witnesses. So Rashi explains, this Tanam does not hold like Reb Meir, who he holds Eid Chasim Mekarti. What makes the get is the witnesses sign in it, because according to Reb Meir, the child would be a mamzer. And they were saying if they got married, the child's going to be kosher. Now, Rashi brings down, Tosfos makes the same comment, but there some say we don't have the text, but our Rashi says the words, according to the one that explains in the Gemara that our Mishnah could even be like a Meir, you could say that yes, because his handwriting is like 100 witnesses, and therefore there are witnesses on this get, and therefore it would be valid. Also, the Tanna of our Mishnah does not hold like Rebbe Lazar, because he holds Eid Masir Karti, and if he held Eid Masir Karti, so why would you say the get would be possible? Moreover, actually, Rabbi Lazar has his opinion is mentioned at the end of the Mishnah. Obviously, he's not the Tanna of our Mishnah. So rather, the Tanna of our Mishnah holds that since it was written with his own handwriting, we do qualify it as v'chasav and v'nasan, meaning v'chasav l'aseh b'krisa v'nasan b'yada. Now, even though there's no Eid Masira, there's no witness that was given over in front of them, biblically it's going to be kosher. So that's why b'di'evit is kosher. But the Rabbanan said it's going to be possible. Why? Because of a concern. What's the concern? Because you might come to validate it with the writing of the cipher without a witness and not with the husband's own handwriting. So therefore, rabbinically, we say she shouldn't get married. But again, if she gets married, the child's going to be kosher, but that's specifically when it was with his handwriting. But if the cipher wrote it and there was no witness, then of course the child would be a mamzer. That's the understanding of case number 1. Case number 2 is Yeshel Avedim. There are witnesses, but there's no date. And that's a rabbinic takana, as we said on Daf Yomi Beis, that we're concerned that if he's going to marry his niece, there's no date after she's mezana, which really she should be chayiv misa. He's going to write for her a get and say, oh, she was already divorced from beforehand. That's where rabbinically that's invalid, but the child's going to be kosher because Meiser is a kosher get. And case number 3 is Yesh Beizman, there is a date, but ve'ein ba'ela et echad. But there's only one witness. Now, there's a machlekes in the Gemara. There is an opinion that holds that this case is going on the way we qualified case number 1, which is Ksav Yadai, when he himself wrote the get. And even so, we're letting you know that, okay, so we already spoke about the case of Ksav Yadai that's going to be kosher. What do you have to say that this third case, because case number 1 said there's no Eidim, but it was his own handwriting. And this case number 3, you're saying there's a date, but there's only one Eid. Well, of course that's going to be kosher with the Evid. If it's with his own handwriting, even without any witnesses. So no, I'm coming to tell you that, but like it's chila not. And the Reish is telling you that even if there's no witness at all, if she did get married, the child's going to be kosher. That's one opinion. Now those who hold that no, this case number 3 is not going on case number 1, meaning that it was written with his own handwriting. It's going on Ksav Sefer, that the scribe, as usual, wrote the get. And even so, the child's going to be kosher because the scribe takes the place of witness number 2. So there's only 8 echad with the sefer together. They consider 2 witnesses, and therefore it's going to be kosher. That we'll see in the Gemara. Ksab yada is kameyadim. Yeah, that's why it would be kosher b'diavad. Right, but Rabbanan say it's going to be possible because you might come to validate it with the Ksav Sefer. So yeah, if it would be literally 2 witnesses, that would be okay because you have the witnesses. But even though his handwriting is like 100 witnesses, but that's only when it's his own writing, it could get confused. People might not realize the difference between his writing of the get and some a scribe writing it. So therefore, rabbinically, it's going to be possible, even when there's one aid. So even though it's 101, like in that hypothetical way, but it's still, we're going to say rabbinically, it's still possible because you could confuse it with when a scribe writes. So the Mishnah says, Harei lo shloisha Gitin psulim. So these 3 Gitin, like we say, are rabbinically going to be invalid. But if this is if they get married, havlad kasha, the child is going to be kasha. The Girsa is Rabbi Lazar Omer, not Rabbi Yazar. Rabbi Lazar says that ava pi she'ein olav edim, even if there's no witnesses, and it's not even his handwriting, still kosher, it's going to be as long as you gave it in front of witnesses, kosher, it's going to be kosher to initially get married. And as we know his opinion, as we'll explain the Gemara, because Eidim Masiri Karti, we don't need any witnesses signed in the get. And you could also collect from collateral from the common properties, because really you don't have to have witnesses signed on the get. It's tikkun ha'olam, only because to remedy for the world, meaning what happens is, if let's say the Eidim are going to die, the husband's going to contest and say, I didn't divorce, so we're not going to have any way of proving it. So rabbinically, we say, have it on the get so that it stays there forever, and you could recall it. But the truth is, it's going to be even like a chila to get married with the Eidei Masira, even if there's no witnesses on the get itself. So now the Gemara asks, you told me there are 3 Gitin that are pasla, and if you get married, the child's going to be kasher. Says Vasuleka. Are there no other Gitin that are pasla ketchila, but the child's going to be kasher? It's only these 3. Va'ika get yashan. There's an old get which the Gemara said in the Gemara that if let's say he wrote a get but he didn't give it yet, he only gave it at a later point in time and he was secluded, we say that you shouldn't use such a get. But if they get married, they don't have to leave. So you see, there is another case. Why are you saying only 3? It says Gemara, Hasim over there, loy teitze. There the halacha wasn't only that if you get married, the child's going to be kosher. There it's if you get married, you don't have to leave. Halacha over here, although we're saying that if you get married, the child's kosher, but teitze, we make you leave. It's rabbinically invalid that we even make you leave the marriage. So it's not the same for this list of 3. So the Gemara says, and it's a little technical, these next few lines. So the Gemara says, okay, that's good according to the one who says, that our Mishnah is requiring you to leave if you got married to any one of these 3 Gitin psulim, which it's machlekes Rav and Levi later on in the sugya on Amud Beis. So that makes sense according to the one who says our Mishnah says you have to leave. So it's different than that halacha of get yashim, which says you don't even have to leave. But according to one who learns in our Mishnah, you don't have to leave. Mike, what are you going to say? They're both that you don't have to leave. So what's the difference? Why are you not including get yashim? So we're going to see on Amud Beis that there's a machlekes Rav and Levi regarding this halacha of our Mishnah. So the Gemara is saying it depends on which one. If you hold that loy teitze, then why wouldn't you add on get yashim? So the Gemara has to come up with a difference. Hasim over there, the Gemara tells us that if she was divorced with the get yashan, that even tinase lekatchila, meaning we don't want you to use a get yashan, but if he did divorce her with the get yashan, okay, ken tzchas nehubin, you could even get married. Here, even if you hold that you don't have to leave, but we don't let you get married with it. And therefore, it would be only after the fact that you did get married. So it's still different. So we couldn't put the get yashin in our list. Okay, says the Gemara, fine, get yashin is not a question, but I have a different question. But I could get kereach. But you have the halacha that we mentioned on the Pi'alva Mebeis. We have what's called a bold get, which we have a get makusher. You have all this folds over when the Kahanim who get upset quickly, so you have to do this difficult process. And if you left open a fold that wasn't signed, it's look, it's clearly you shouldn't get married, but the it's going to be kosher. Why don't you count that as one of the add on the fourth one? Says Gemara, no, it's different. Hasam avlad mamzer. There, the child actually would be a mamzer if he got married with this get kereach. Hachavlad kosher. Here, the child, like we said in the Mishnah, the child would be kosher. So Gemara says, wait a second. That makes sense according to Meir that he says, whoever changes by the text that the sage is made by Gitin, the child's going to be a mamzer, and therefore if you didn't do exactly as the get Mekush is supposed to be, so it's going to be mamzer. But el Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, if our Mishnah over here is like the Rabbanan, Michael, remember what are you going to say? You should say also over here the get kereach, because they hold the child's not a mamzer. So it's the same case. You shouldn't get married, but if you do, the child's going to be kosher. So why don't you count get kereach? Says Gemara, no, it's different. Why? Hasam over there, teitze. Even according to Rabbanan, they hold, okay, the child's not going to be a mamzer, but you have to leave that marriage if you got married to get kereach. Over here, like teitze, you don't have to leave. So therefore, it's different. Again, it says that's very well according to the one who holds that our Mishnah that holds not only is the child kosher, but you don't have to leave. You got married one of these three Gitin. But according to the one that says here you have to leave. What are you going to say? So then you should have said a fourth one, which would get kereach, which you also have to leave. So it's the same type of case. It says the Gemara no, we're not talking about a get makusha because it's not really shchiach a get makusha. It wasn't a common type of a case. You're right, although it fit into the category of these three to add on the fourth one. But we weren't talking about get makusha. The regular get. In the regular get, there's only three type of gittin that are possible, but the blood's going to be kosher. So the Gemara says, but wait a second, there's another case. But there is regarding peace with the government. The Gemara said on the Vainteshem Beis that if you wrote it for a different malchus, we said rabbinically it's going to be possible. But of course the child's going to be kosher because it's a valid get. So why did you say shalom malchus? That when you switch to government, says the Gemara, no, they're different. Why? Hasam teitze over there, the halacha is that you have to leave the marriage if you got married with the wrong government. Hachalai teitze, in our Mishnah, you don't have to leave. The Gemara says again, it's very well according to the one that says Hachalei teitze in our Mishnah, you don't have to leave. So it's different. Elamandam teitze according to the one that says in our Mishnah, if you got married one of these three Gitin psulim, you would have to leave. Michael, what are you going to say? It's just like the case of shalom malchus. Says the Gemara in parentheses, Hasam over there, no, Havlad Mamzer. There, if you got married with the wrong Shalom Malchus, the child would be a Mamzer. Havlad Kasher, the child would be Kasher. The Gemara says, wait a second, let's go to Rabbi Meir, who holds that if you change from the text of the get, which is you write the wrong government, it's going to be possible and the child's going to be a Mamzer. Whereas over here, it won't be a Mamzer. That's not going to be a Mamzer. What are you going to say? It's the same type of halacha as it is over there. So the Gemara says that whoever holds in our Mishnah, as we'll see in Amud Beis, that these three Gitin, if you got married with it, you would have to leave. So we're asking, so then why don't you say the same thing as Shalom Malchus, which you have to leave? Mukim law, he'll explain our Mishnah, Kid Reb Meir, like Reb Meir, and therefore they're different. Because of a Hasam over there, Avlad Mamzer, the child's going to be a Mamzer because you changed from the Matbesh Dav Chachamim because you didn't write the right government. Avlad Kasher, here the child's going to be Kasher because it's not changing from any primary text. It's just you didn't do all the halachic angles that the Rabbanan required, and therefore it's different. Because the child would be kosher over here, and the child's going to be mamzer. And if we didn't list as number 4, the halacha of when you change shalom malchus. Okay, but now the Gemara says, I mean, you said 2 times this idea of 3 Gitin psulim. There's minyana dereisha. When you open up the Mishnah, you said a number of shleisha Gitin psulim. Lemu'ute mai, what's that coming to exclude? You say 3 and not another one. And minyana de seifa. You ended off when you, after you finished, you said all the 3 cases, you said, Harei elu, shloisha Gitin b'sulim. It also sounds like a miut. These 3 and not something else. So, l'mutei, what's that coming to exclude? When you said it 2 times, 3, it's these and not something else. What are you excluding those 2 times?
Why does Gemara even bring Reb Meir? The ratio was from the Chachamim.
We don't know who the Reisha is.
No?
It doesn't say. We know it's not Rebbe Lazar because Rebbe Lazar is in the Seif of the Mishnah, but the Reisha could be Reb Meir. It's not Mishnah, actually, it's Reb Meir, actually. Yeah.
And therefore it's even a good stronger.
Right, but I'm saying, but it could be, right, even the Stamas in Reb Meir, we'll try to assume it's Reb Meir, but sometimes it'll be a different Tanakama. Be someone else. So that's why we're entertaining who exactly is the Mishnah like. And according to one opinion, it has to be Reb Meir. So when you said this shleisha 2 times, what are you coming to exclude? So the Gemara explains. When it says in the Reisha, hare elu, what it's coming to exclude this number is the following, which we're really coming to tell you that the Mishnah is Remeir, who he said over there by Shalom Malchus that the child is going to be a mamzer. So the Mishnah over here is coming to exclude those cases when the child will be a mamzer. Meaning, if our Mishnah, that's what they wanted explaining. If our Mishnah is Remeir holds in many places. You don't do exactly like the rabbi said. Child's a mamzer. So when our Mishnah says these three will have this halacha, which is the child's going to be kosher, is excluding Remeir's other cases, which no, you change child will be a mamzer. That's what the Reish is coming to exclude. So that's that answer for that part. For all those cases, Remeir says a mamzer, let's say Shalom Malchus, and all these different cases, that if you change that, it's a mamzer. We're saying we're excluding that from the Reisha. And under the Sefer, when you say Harei Gimel, what's that coming to exclude? It's Hadatanya, the following Braisa, meaning to say that over here, in the case of the Braisa, the child will be a mamzer according to Remeir. And our Mishnah is coming to tell you that this is a correct Braisa, that even in such a case, Remeir would say it's a mamzer, and that's why our Mishnah says these three are not going to be a mamzer. The child's going to be kosher, excluding the case of the Braisa, which, yes, the child will be a mamzer, which is the following Braisa. I maybe get from Medina Sam, some brings a get from overseas. If he gives it to her, he doesn't say the words in front of me was written in front of me was signed. Remeir says that you have to leave. You have to leave if you got married with this get, and the child's a mamzer, which are the words Remeir. Which again, that's what we're coming to exclude from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah that says the child's kosher is excluding that case to say that case actually will be not in this list because the child will be a mamzer. But they say no, ain't a vlad mamzer. The child's not a mamzer. Rather, the kid say, yeah. So what should you do? He should take it. The shlich should take it back from the woman. And give it back to him in front of two people. The Yom should say in front of me, it was written in front of me, it was signed. So it's that case that we wanted to tell you with the minyan of the Sefer to say that, our Mishnah is not like that. Our Mishnah holds that it's going to be child's kosher, but excluding that case that the child will be a mamzer. Now, going through in detail these three cases of these three Gitin Psul Midrabanan, but the child, if you get married, the child's going to be kosher. The Gemara discusses now. Case number one was Kasab Ksav Yadai. If he wrote the get with his own handwriting, he says Hareyat Muteres L'Chaladam. He writes it with his nice handwriting. Ve'ein Lavedim, but there's no witnesses. A guy himself, he writes it out. He goes online, Wikipedia. He finds the text of the get and he writes it out to his wife, and he gives it without witnesses. So that's what the Mishnah said. Okay, that the get's going to be possible, but if you get married, the child's going to be kosher. So Amar Rav says, Ksav Yadai Shaninu. We learned in the Mishnah his handwriting. That's what the words of Rav were. So the Gemara says, Ahai, what's Rav going on? Ilema Reisha, if he's going on the first case of the Mishnah, which was talking about that there's no witness here at all. Ein olav edim. So, Pshita, obviously, Ksav Yadai Ketani. The Mishnah said his handwriting. You're definitely not telling me the explicit words in the Mishnah. Of Ella rather says the Gemara, Rav is going on Amitziasa, on the middle case of the Mishnah, which we said is puzzle because you have witnesses, but you didn't have a date. But then the question becomes, who cares if it's his handwriting? Who cares if the Sefer wrote it? Harei yesh lavedim. But there's witnesses on the second case. So what do I need his handwriting for? Ella says, no. A Sefer. Rav is going on the third case, which was, yesh bezman, there's a date, ve'ein ba'ele er echad, but there's only one witness on this get. It says, Gitin Tamid Beis, dozog Rav. You want to understand case number 3? I'll tell you what it is. Ve'davka ksav yadai ve'eid. When did we say that if she gets married with such a get, the child's going to be kosher? If he wrote the get with his own handwriting, and there was this one aid, that's going to be kosher. Aval but ksav seifa ve'eid. But if there's the scribe with the witness, then loy, that's not going to be kosher. Now Rashi asks, he says, if you're going to say, we already know this halacha from the Reisha. We said the first case was, even if there's no witness at all, but he wrote the get with his own handwriting, we said the child's going to be kosher. So according to Rav, what do I need this case number 3? Bezakmim mit his ksav yada with his handwriting. So what's the eid echad? What? Well, it's kosher even without any eid. So Rashi answers, says, if not for the sefer, I would have thought to say that when there is an eid echad with his handwriting, she could even l'katchila get married. Because there's 2 people over here. So saying that no, that only b'di'evet going to be kosher. So that's how Rav holds. However, Shmuel Hamahi disagrees. He says regarding case number 3, it's not true that it has to be ksav yadai. And we already referenced this machlekes and Rashi in the Mishnah regarding this case number 3 of yesh beizman ve'im ba'ela erecha. There's only one witness. How is this get going to be kosher b'di'evet? So again, Rav is saying because it's his own handwriting. Shmuel Hamahi says no. I feel like ksav sefer ve'ed, even if it's just a regular scribe writing the get with one aid, it's going to be kosher. Why? Because we learned in the Mishnah later on in the parak that says the following halacha. It says, Ksav Sefer ve'ed, if you have the scribe writing and one witness signed, kosher, it's going to be kosher. So Shmuel says, yeah, case number 3 doesn't need to have his handwriting, even if it's the Sefer writes. The Mishnah sagt weiter, Ksav Sefer ve'ed is going to be kosher. Says the Gemara, so Rav, what would Rav tell you? Why is Rav saying it has to be his handwriting? If the Mishnah later on says even if it's described with one witness is going to be kosher. He says, me dummy. Can you compare it to that Mishnah? Hasam over there, that Mishnah is telling us, Tinase likatchila. There the Mishnah sounds like it's telling you that you could even likatchila get married with such a get. So what? So wait a second. So why saying puzzle? Why saying ksav? Why you need ksav yadai? If you're saying that Mishnah says ksav soif of 8 is going to be kosher even likatchila to get married, so Rashi explains, meaning to say no. That's why Rav holds when the Mishnah over there says ksav sefer, it doesn't really mean kesav sefer. It means chasam sefer. It means the scribe signed with the witness, as Rabbi Yirmiyah explains later on Daf Peichesim on Daf Peichesim and Aleph. So don't bring me right from that Mishnah over there. That Mishnah is saying even the Ketchil get married. Now no one would say the Ketchil get married when you have one aid. Must be because it's not Ksab Sefer, it's Chasam Sefer. But Hach over here, we're talking about the Yevid, as our Mishnah says explicitly. Our Mishnah says only after the fact valid. So must be, it's not Chasam Sefer. So what is it? Iksav Yadai. Because Ksav Sefer itself wouldn't help. That's how Rav would explain to you the halacha of our Mishnah. Now, Shmuel, he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yirmiyah. He holds, no, the Mishnah later on, as we'll see on a later daf, hold it's Kesav Sefer, the writing of the scribe, and not Chasam Sefer, not that the scribe signed. And still, like Kasha, because the question was, wait a second, Rav has a good point. The Mishnah, they make it sound like Chili can get married with such a get. So why is our Mishnah saying only b'di'evet it's going to be okay? If this is case number 3, with Ksav Sefer Eid. Why would only be b'di'evet of Vlad Kasha? Says, no, look, Kasha not difficult. You know why? The reason why the Mishnah over there later on says, look at Chil, it's going to be kosher, it's B'safra Demuvak. We're talking about a proficient, professional scribe who is well versed in the halachas of Gitin. He would never write it only if he heard directly from the husband to do this, and therefore it's as if there's a second witness over here. In our Mishnah that says only b'di'evet is b'safra delay mavik, not a professional scribe. Therefore, maybe he didn't hear explicitly from the husband to do this, and therefore we're going to say b'di'evet is going to be kosher, but not like etchila. So therefore, it's not difficult on Shmuel why there the Mishnah says like etchila, and here is b'di'evet because it depends if it's a safra demuvik or it's not a professional cipher. Now, what's V'chein Rabbi Yochanan? Rashi explains like Rav. Rabbi Yochanan says like Rav that not like Shmuel, like Ksav Yodei Shaninu. That case number 3 in our Mishnah when we said that Yesh Beizman Be'im Be'ela Er Echad, the get is going to be kosher b'di'evet, is talking about where it was with his own handwriting. But if it was only the scribe who wrote it with one aid, the child actually would be a mamzer. Normally, Rabbi Lazar said to Rabbi Yochanan, says, what do you mean? Haresh Labedim? Because as Rashi explains, what do you mean Yesh Labedim? We're in case number 3. There's only an echad. So Rashi explains, Rabbi Lazar thought that Rabbi Yochanan was going on the middle case. When there's witnesses, there's just no date. So on that, Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, no, I'm going on Seifa. I'm going on the case of the Seifa. There's only one aid. And therefore, That's what's saying that you need to have the husband's own handwriting to make it a kosher get, at least b'di'evet. Now the Gemara explains that Zimnin Amar Rav, at times Rav would say regarding these three gittin of our Mishnah, which we said these are three gittin psulim, but we said if they get married, the vlad's going to be kosher. There were times that Rav said regarding these three gittin that if you get married with them teitze, you have to leave the marriage. And this was the machlekes that we said we're going to get to regarding our Mishnah didn't talk about staying or leaving the marriage. It spoke about like a don't use this get, and but the child's going to be kosher. But what about staying in the marriage? So regarding staying in the marriage, at times Rav would say she has to leave. Zimnom Rav loiteitz. At times Rav would say she doesn't have to leave. So the Gemara says, okay, so what is it? What does it depend on? So the Gemara says the criterion is like this: Yesh lebanim, if she had children before they found out that this was the type of get that she had used to get married with, so loiteitz. So she should not leave the marriage because we don't want to spread rumors of illegitimate children on her kids. So don't leave, because the nicer child's not a mamzer. But if she's going to leave, the going to say, "Oh, so do a mamzer do," right? So better let her stay in. Ain't labam she doesn't have any children, so teitze, then yes, she should leave because ultimately this again we don't want people to be using. That's how Rav explained the halacha of the Mishnah. On that, Moshe Mazuch Bar Tuvia. Mazuch Bar Tuvia asked on Rav from a Mishnah Mesechtes Yevamis. What does the Mishnah say? So this Mishnah says V'kulan, and this is on the first Mishnah in the Mesechta that says these 15 arayas that we said that if they're one of the co-wives, they exempt any of the other tzaras of the co-wives from chalitza. But it gets interesting. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, if shahayu behen, if there was for the husband that died a safek kedushin, a doubtful kedushin in this erva, I mean, it's not clear if he ever married this erva, or he divorced these arayas before he died, a safek gerushin. It's not clear if it was a gerushin. So it comes out that the co-wives is not clear if she's a tzaras erva. Is she a co-wife of the erva, never she's pater from yib mechalitza, or maybe she's not a tzaras erva because maybe that takash that erva was never engaged or was divorced, and therefore she would require yibum. So it's not clear what to do in that situation. So says the Mishnah, the halacha is that harei elu, these co-wives are chaltzais. They have to do chalitza because maybe there is a zika, because maybe really she's not a tzaras erva. Maybe that erva was never married to this husband, or maybe was divorced. But v'lo misyabes, they can't do yibum because maybe there's no zika, because maybe she is a tzaras erva. It comes out that the brother-in-law will be marrying an eishes ach, his brother's wife, shalom b'makam mitzvah, because there's no mitzvah yibum because they're tzaras of erva. That's what the Mishnah says. Now, ketzad safek kedushin. What is a case of that we're not clear if there is a kedushin? Is zarak la kedushin. If he throws her the ring, safek karvla. It's not clear, was it closer to her or was it closer to him? So safek kedushin. That's a doubt if this is considered as a kedushin. So we're not sure if she's engaged to him or not. And what's safek gerushin? What's a doubt regarding divorce? And this is really why we're bringing this in. Kasav b'ksav yadeh. Really, the Mishnah there quotes the three cases of our Mishnah. Kasav b'ksav yadeh. If the husband wrote the get with his own handwriting, that was case number 1 of our Mishnah. There's no witnesses on the get. Case number 2, says the Mishnah, which is case number 2 in our Mishnah. Yesh lavedim, there's witnesses. Avein beisman, there's no date. Or case number 3, yesh beisman, there's a date, but there's only one witness. These 3 cases of our Mishnah, yeah, because hareza safek gerushin, as Rashi explains, why is it a safek gerushin in these 3 cases? Because since biblically the get is kosher, so the tzara really does have a zika for yibum, because she's not really a tzaras erva, because these 3 gittin are biblically kosher. But there's some girsas of Rashi add on the words, but since rabbinically it's puzzle, so we can't allow there to be yibum. So it's not really a safek gerushin, but it's like that category that like we can't consider it a gerushin. Biblically it is, we can't really rabbinically consider it. So, it's going to have the halacha of chaltzes of lemis yabes. That's the case that the Mishnah Yevamah says is going to have halacha of chaltzes b'mitzabes on this safek gerushin from this erva. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, a question on Rav. V'i amrit, if you're going to say, like Rav says, that loy teitze, you told me, Rav, that if she got married with this get and she had children, no, don't leave the marriage if you got married to one of these three Gitin psulim. Wait a second, says the Gemara. If that's the case, people are going to come to say that this is an effective get. Look, she's staying married. Comes out her tzara is not a tzaras erva because she was divorced. Meaning, if you're letting her, Rav says this erva, let's call her the tochter from the uncle, meaning from the brother-in-law, right? He's the one coming to do yibum. His daughter is one of the many wives of his brother. So you say, and the brother gave his wife, his daughter, his own handwriting without any witnesses. One of the three cases of our Mishnah. So Rav says, okay, they had children already? Okay, like Teitze. Then don't leave the marriage. Don't leave the marriage. That means to say it's a good get, obviously. If it's a good get, then people are going to say that obviously the co-wives are not Saras Erva, right? Because she was divorced. Because how do I know she's divorced? Because you're letting her stay married. You're not making her leave the marriage. No, kids from the second husband, from the new guy that she got married to. But the brother who died without any children. Yeah, I'm saying, but now there's no more Tzaras Erva because she was divorced before he died. He gave her one of these three Gitin, which you're telling me is people are going to say must be kosher. So then it must have been the Tzaras and not Tzaras Erva because she was not there at the moment of death.
And if it wasn't kosher, then there's.
If it wasn't kosher, then there's Tzaras Erva, and then there's no Yibum. So then that makes sense. We're not going to do Yibum. But the problem is, says the Gemara, Tzaras Asli Bume. People are going to come to do Yibum with the co-wives because they're going to say, oh, it was a kosher get. Look, she's staying married. Now, what's the problem with that? But if she is a Tzaras Erva, then you're doing Eishes Ach, Shalei B'Malka Mitzvah. So how, Rav, are you letting Loi Teitze? So the Gemara says, no, it's not a problem. So fine, Tisyabim. And let's say this happens, that you're all concerned that these co-wives will do Yibum. No, Shain, it's not such a problem. Because Chashasha Derabanahi, it's only a rabbinic concern. In other words, even if they're going to come to do Yibum, which is your big concern, it doesn't bother us so much. To go ahead and make a gzeira and say, oh, we should make her leave, because if we don't make her leave, then they might come to do Yibum with the co-wife. No, biblically the get is kosher. It's only a rabbinic concern. And you're right, she's not really a Tzaras Erva. So go ahead, do Yibum. Rabbinically, we're not letting it, but does the Grace of Chashash? We're not concerned with that. We're not going to make a woman leave a marriage and make a laws on her children because of the concern that they might do Yibum, because even if they would do it, it wouldn't be a problem on the biblical level. So this was all according to Rav. But it's a machlokes, like we said already on Amid Aleph. Levi Amma, he disagrees. He says, no, lo oilam lo teitze. He says, no, she never leaves the marriage, even if she doesn't have children. So this was the machlokes we had said. If the halacha of the three Gitin in our Mishnah are teitze or lo teitze, Rav, even he's the one who says teitze, but sometimes he says lo teitze if there are children. But then we have Levi who says, no, she never leaves the marriage. Once you're married, okay, even though we said rabbinically it's possible, we're not going to make you leave the marriage. Rabbi Yochanan says, lo teitze, the halacha is always you don't have to leave. And this is what Rabbi Yochanan says to the sons of Rabbi Chalafta from Huna, that Hachim Abucha, and this is what your father said, no, you always don't have to leave. And another teaching your father said was something unrelated, was Vikartzis Sheba Amr. This kartzis that we're going to describe it in a second, this creature that's in the sheaves, in the bundles, in the peselis b'meichatas. If it drank from the meichatas, what's the meichatas? The meichatas is the para duma, the red heifer, has to be burnt and mixed in ash water, meaning make ash water, and then you spray that on the person that has tumas mess on day 3 and day 7 of his purification process. If this kartzis drank, and this kartzis hangs out in the bundles, if it drank from the paraduma ash waters, it's not going to invalidate it. Says about my kartzis. What's his kartzis? Mabai says it's the davsa. It's a large fly like a locust, the bene kipi that's found amongst the bundles. If he drinks from the mechatas water, it doesn't invalidate it. Which the Gemara wonders. Wait a second. Mazar Rav Daniel bar Rav Katina. Rav Daniel, the son of Rav Katina, asked from a Mishnah Masechtas Para. Mishnah says, "Kala oifais, all birds, paisim mechatas. If they drink from the waters that are used for the paraduma, it invalidates it because when they drink it, it goes back in. Chutz minayin, except for a dove, neshamay tzetzes. A dove sips, so none of the water in its mouth goes back and drips back into the vessel. Because the Mishnah over there, Masechtas Para, teaches when an animal or bird drinks from the water, the reason why it's possible is because when they're lapping the water, so some of the water that's going in is coming back out. So that nullifies it when it was in their mouth from having a status as mechatas. A dove is different because a dove takes it and zips it right in and it doesn't drip back in. Says the Gemara, V'meisa, now if it's true like you just said, that this kartzis also does not passel b'mechatas, so Nisni wanted you to say two exceptions, chutz miyaina b'kartzis. Why only saying that the yaina, the dove, is the one exception? Say kartzis also does not invalidate mechatas. Says the Gemara, you're right, but like psikale. Regarding the kartzis, it's not definitive and clear cut, so we didn't say it like the yaina. Why? Because the gedai loy pasla. It's only the big kartzis that doesn't invalidate it. But Vaktana, the small one, would actually would invalidate it because it does drink and it goes back in by the young one. Says the Gemara, ad kama, until how much is it considered small that it would invalidate when it drinks from mechatas? Some say ad kezayis, when it's up until the size of an olive. But when it's an olive size and bigger, then it's considered already gedayla, and then when it drinks from the mechatas, it does not invalidate the mechatas. That was the second teaching he heard from their father. Look at the Mishnah. He said a whole different opinion than we said in the first half of the Mishnah. He says, even if there's no eidism signed on the get at all, it's going to be kosher, as we'll see because of what he holds regarding the halacha of what actually creates the creases. Now, halachically, Amar Bihuda Amar Rav, he says, halacha kebelaza begitin. Halacha fazer kebelaza begitin, meaning that it's the eidim mesira, it's the witnesses that it's given over in front of them as it happens that creates the creases, and therefore there is not even a rabbinic invalidation in the get. But, however, he doesn't rule like Rabbi Elazar by documents, because by documents it says in the pasuk v'chasav b'sefer v'chasav. You should write it in the scroll and you should sign in it in Sefer Yirmiyah. So that teaches us that by other documents you do have to have witnesses sign on the document itself. However, Shmuel says when I said over this teaching in front of Shmuel, Amar, he disagreed with Rav. He says no, af b'shtaris, that we rule like Rabbi Elazar even by other documents. But the pasuk says that you should write on it and sign on it. That says Rashi is only Eitz Tevik Kamash Malan. That's just a good counsel because of Tikkun Olam, so that you should have proof and evidence. But really, halachically, we rule like Rabbi Elazar, even by other documents, the halacha is it's going to be kosher with just the Eid Mesira. You don't need to have Eid Chasima. Says the Gemara, does Rav really hold that Rabbi Elazar's halacha was not said by other documents? But our Mishnah says clearly the words v'goyv mechasim mishabadim. He said that you could even collect from encumbered properties. Now, meaning to say, if it's a star or it's a get, either way you collect from the chasim mishabadim. Mishnah teaching ksubas that peites menav that you could use a get. If you don't have a ksuba, you could collect your ksuba. But you see that even in a monetary way, we rule like Rabbi Elazar, not just regarding the laws of Gitin. Says the Gemara, you're right. Rabbi Elazar, Tartiam, Rabbi Elazar himself said two halachas, one by Gitin and one by shtagas. Rav Savik Havasei B'chada, he holds like him in one regarding Gitin, but apparently B'chada he disagrees with him in the other one regarding other stars. By Gitin, meaning when you don't have any witnesses sign in it, it's going to be kosher. Rabbi Yanayama, he says, no, even the scent of a get, which is to be possible from kahuna as a stringency, and all the more so, Einba, he says, there's not even, and for sure not to make her permitted, but even to be a stringency, we're going to say it's not this. Rabbi Yanai, less like Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Yanai doesn't hold Rabbi Elazar, who holds that it is kosher. He says, no, this is what he was saying. L'Rabban, according to Rabban, who disagree with Rabbi Elazar, that if there's no witnesses signed on the get, Afil reich get ein, but there's not even the scent of a get, meaning without the chasim, it's not going to be possible even to be possible kahuna, which is even when you have just the scent of a get. And so to Amr Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shloimy, he says Allah be Gitin. He says yes, Allah be Gitin. Rabbi Shloimy, he says Afil reich get ein, but he says no, there's not even the scent of a get. He says what? Again, the same conversation. Rabbi Yechon, unless Rabbi Lazar say Rabbi Yechon does not hold like Rabbi Lazar, which we pass on like that is Eidim Masir Karati. That's what he was saying. Rabban, according to Rabban, like Rabbi Meir, who disagrees, I feel recha get, but there's not even going to be the scent of a get. Now, Shalchi or Baba Bazavda Lamori Barmar said, "Boy, my name Rav Huna." Ask from Rav Huna the following question: Halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin is halacha like Rabbi Lazar begitin, or yin halacha is halacha nalakim. But at the hachi in the meantime, noch nafshid Rav Huna passed away, so he couldn't ask Rav Huna. So Amali Rabbi Bray, the Rabbi, the son of Rav Huna, said, this is what my father said in the name of Rava. Halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, halacha is like Rabbi Lazar by gitin. And Rabbi Seinu and our teacher, Bekin B'dvar Halacha, who are well versed in halacha, which are those that we're going to explain, Rav Chama Bar Gurya. So they say Mishum Rabbein in the name of our teacher of Rav, halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, halacha like Rabbi Lazar by gitin, because we find Rav Chama Bar Gurya, Omer Rav, they say in the name of Rav, halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, halacha Rabbi Lazar by gitin. Those that say that he said v'chavirenu, not Rabbi Seinu, but our colleagues, meaning referring to Rav Chizda, habekim devar halacha, that are well versed in halacha, and v'tamidu Rabbeinu Mishum Rabbeinu Amr, and the students of our teacher, the name of our teacher said halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, because Amr Rav Chizda, he's chavirenu. Rav Chizda said Amr Rav Chama Bar Gurya Amr Rav, halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin. Chenki Asur Rav and Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi says halacha Rabbi Lazar begitin, halacha is like Rabbi Lazar by gitin. Start the next Mishnah. And a little bit of the Gemara. So the Gemara continues regarding this case of when what's psulim regarding Gitin. Says the Mishnah, Shnaim shesholchu shnei Gitin. A very interesting case. Two people send the same exact get as with the same names. But they got mixed up. They look exactly the same. So what you do is you give both Gitin to both women. Therefore, if one of them gets lost, okay, the second one is null and void because you don't know whose it is to who to give it to. And even if you give it to both, but it might be the wrong one. Now, what happens if chamisha shekasu v'klal get? If 5 people wrote a communal get, ish playing Yimagad, ish playing this man's divorcing that woman. Playing this man's divorcing that woman. And then you have, after all these getting on the bottom, you have Eidim Ulmata, you have the witnesses on the bottom. Says the Mishnah, Kulam Kshem, they're all going to be valid. And you give it to each and every woman. Now, however, if Hayukaisev Taifis Echad ve'echad, but if you wrote a text to each one individually, which the Gemara is going to explain exactly what is that case, and ve'edim ulmata, and you have witnesses on the bottom, so then only Esha Edim Nikrinimai, then only the witnesses that are read with that last one, meaning the bottom one, only that one's going to be kosher, but the upper ones are going to be possible because maybe the witnesses are testifying only on the last one. Says the Gemara on the Reisha. So the Gemara says, Man Tana, who is the Tana of our Mishnah that said that there is a remedy that you could give both to each one of when you have the same names and you don't know which get is which, you give it to both? Rabbi Yirmiyah says, the like Rabbi Lazar. It's not like Rabbi Lazar, rather it must be like Rabbi Meir. And therefore each and every one is divorced with her get, because it came to her and the witnesses assigned it. And Remeir, since he doesn't require Eid Masir, it's going to be okay because every get also, when the witnesses signed it, they don't know who they're giving it to. They just know the name. And he was signed for her name. And that's what validates the get. But the Rabbi Lazar was like Rabbi Lazar, even though since he says Eid Masir character, what creates the get is the witnesses received being given over, and they are what's creating the creases. But Halayadi, those Eid Masir don't know Bahaimanaya Kamagarsha with which get is she being divorced. So that's not considered a verified Lishma type of a Nesina. And Rabbi Lazar, since he doesn't require Chasima Lishma, the Gemara is assuming when it says V'kasav law, it has to be Lishma, must mean not on just the writing, but it must mean on the giving. The Benasan has to be Lishma. And because Eid Masir is Karti. So just like the Chasim has to be done Lishma, the Gemara is assuming that the Nesin has to be done Lishma, but they don't know who it is. They can't say it's given to this woman. They don't know which get is which. So it must be a Mishnah like Rameh and not like Rabbi Lazar. The Gemara says, Abayami says, no, Philotem Rabbi Lazar. You could even say the Mishnah is like Rabbi Lazar, because aim in the Rabbi Lazar, when do I say Rabbi Lazar requires is Kesiva Lishma? Because that's what it says, B'chasav law. The law, Lishma, is on the B'chasiva. Seeing the Lishma, maybe who said he requires the giving to be given for her namesake? Could be that would be valid, even according to him, even though we don't know who we're giving to, even the Edi Mesiri Karti, but as long as the Kesiva was Lishma, they know it's being given, even though they don't know which one it's being given to, it would be valid if you give both of them to both of them. Thank you to any time for hosting us.